Okay, guys, today we're going to talk about Rwanda and the genocide that took place there in 1994 with some of the events that kind of led up to it, what caused it, and some of the ultimate outcomes of what took place there. So, first, in order for us to kind of understand Rwanda, we really need to kind of compare it to the U.S. to kind of give you guys an idea as to what we're talking about in terms of the differences between the two countries, and kind of gives you a little bit better point of view as to what we're talking about here. So, as you guys look and see at Rwanda, you can see that we talk about the land area. It's about 24,000 square miles, whereas the United States is much, much larger. In fact, it is about 9 million square miles. Population, obviously, there's a lot more population here in the U.S. than there is in Rwanda. But some of the big things that I want to kind of point out to you guys is you look here, look at the life expectancy, 47 years old. So that means that their medical fields and such like that are not as well developed as the U.S., whereas the U.S. is 77 years old. Makes it a huge difference in terms of the population there, because basically, if you guys think about it, when you hit your 20s, you're a middle-aged person in Rwanda, based on the health care system that they have there. So the life expectancy kind of tells us a little bit about what's going on with the population. The fact that they have very little health care, probably their their well-being is probably not as well looked out for as in the countries of the United States and so on. The ethnicities, we've kind of touched on this a little bit. We talked about the fact that there were two groups that the Belgians kind of created, the Hutus and the Tutsis, and the Hutus were the majority of the population. The Tutsis were a minority in their population, and they were a group that was basically put in charge by the Belgians to run the colony. And when the Belgians kind of pulled out, left them there high and dry, and as a result of that, the Hutus will eventually take their revenge on the Tutsis for years and years of the oppression that kind of took place there. We're going to kind of skip down, and we're going to look at this here. GDP, which we talked about, is kind of like a country's average wealth. And we look at Rwanda, and it's $10.4 billion, which, probably sounds not too bad for you, but you compare that to the U.S., where it is $11.75 trillion. So there's a very large discrepancy between the two countries there, and then probably the biggest thing, like we go back to talking about life expectancy and everything else like that, the per capita income, which is the average income in a home in Rwanda, is $1,300. I would venture to say that most of your parents or family members make about $1,300 every 2 weeks as they work, whereas compared to that's what a Rwandan makes in a year. So as you can see, there's a very large difference between the two countries, and that's kind of where we kind of see some of the starting points for what we're going to be discussing. The two groups that we're talking about, the Hutus, which were the majority in Rwanda, and basically they were put underneath the rule of the Tutsis by the Belgians, okay? And as I said before, once the Belgians kind of left the country, left the Tutsis to fend for themselves, the Hutus overthrew the Tutsis, and that led to some massacres that occurred in the 1960s and 70s that led to thousands of Tutsis to die. Moderate Hutus, which is the word moderate here, basically means people that kind of didn't have a feeling one way or the other. They didn't want the Tutsis to die. They were kind of on the side of the Tutsis in terms of we should just all live in peace and that kind of stuff. Were also killed as well. The key to this picture here, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this as we get into the actual video here, but when we talk about Rwanda, you will see a lot of this, or when we watch the video and stuff like that, you see a lot of the killings that takes place there used by machetes. And actually, one thing I like to point out to my classes is that if you look at where this gentleman is holding that weapon he's holding it by the blade, so it obviously tells you that it's not very sharp. So it's obviously going to take a lot of force and a lot of hatred in order to do what the Hutus do in 1994. So it's kind of an important thing to kind of see there as it relates to that. And that was the main killing weapon during the genocides in Rwanda. So You can see right there, like I said, just it's a really good picture to kind of show you guys an example of that, what's going on with the Tutsis were favored by the Europeans. They were given education, control of the local government, and when the Europeans left, the Hutus kind of took control, slaughtering thousands and thousands of Tutsis, causing them to flee to different countries, and just in general, there was a lot of civil war and unrest up to and through 1994, and even past that point in time in Rwanda because of that reason. This is obviously a group of the Tutsis fleeing Rwanda, probably during the genocides that were taking place in 1994, because CNN was somewhat reporting it, even though most news outlets kind of, for the most part, ignored what was going on in Rwanda during this time frame. Okay, so now we're actually going to get into the actual starts of the genocide, what caused it, what it was, and in terms of what we're talking about with Rwanda, we're kind of talking about what we would consider to be the decimation of Rwanda. And if you guys see here in this first bullet point right here, that the decimation of Rwanda basically means the killing of every 10th person in a population. And basically what occurred here is that in the spring and summer of 1994, 1 out of every 10 people were killed during this genocide. Or if you put it in our terms, in terms of the kids on our team, we have about 115 kids on our team. That would be about 11 of you that would be dead as a result of the genocide. So I mean, it's crazy at how much they killed in that period of time. The dead of Rwanda nearly accumulated at 3 times the rate of the Jews that were killed during the Holocaust, which is another amazing fact, because there were 6 million Jews that were killed during the Holocaust, and they used things like guns, the gas chamber, so on and so forth, in order to kill the Jews in a mass amount of in mass groups. Whereas in the Holocaust, or in the genocide of Rwanda, they were mainly using machetes to do this. So they were killing Rwandans at nearly 3 times the rate that were killed during the Holocaust. And the next one is kind of just unreal in terms of the way I think of things. It was the most efficient mass killing since the atomic bomb of bombings of both Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Once again, that was a bomb. We're talking about people with machetes that were killing others as part of this genocide. So it was unreal the amount of killing that was taking place in Rwanda during this time frame, and it really went with very little to no news coverage that was going on during this time frame. So it was kind of an interesting point of view as to what's going on with this. So in 1994, basically, there were, and we'll see this in the video, and you really want you guys to pay attention to that. There's a gentleman that is constantly talking on the radio, promoting attacks on Tutsis because, as they referred to them as cockroaches. And you'll hear that an awful lot during the movie. So, what took place is that the president of Rwanda, which was President Habyarimana, his plane was shot down. The Hutus blame the Tutsis for this, but it's often thought that the Hutus played a larger role in the death of Habyarimana because he was actually going to sign a peace treaty with the Tutsis. And so there is a lot of belief that members of the government on the Hutu side that wanted to see this genocide take place were the ones responsible for his death. So there was really no proof found that the Tutsis had anything to do with this, but yet still the killing started as a result of that, and that's when the genocide basically occurred. And so basically, as we will see here in the video, and in the video we'll go into a lot more detail about it than what I'm going, but I'm kind of giving you some background on it. But the first night of the genocide, basically, like I said, the killings were low-tech, done with mostly machetes. The Hutus began the genocide, killing nearly 1 million Tutsis and moderate Hutus. For the most part, the world ignored it. I was in high school during that time frame. Actually, I was a senior in high school and really had not heard anything about it. It was pretty much swept under the rug about certain things, and it's just one of those things that should not have been allowed to occur. Eventually, the Tutsi rebels, known as the Rwandan Patriotic Front, eventually will put down the genocide with some help from the UN, very little, and at that point in time, they started to chase the Hutus out of the country, and nearly 2 million Hutus will flee Rwanda, and find refuge in other countries as well. So that's pretty much the background of the genocide in terms of what we're talking about with Rwanda. We're going to watch the video or the movie, and it will give you a lot more details and a lot more visuals as to what actually took place. This is just we're just kind of scratching the surface with this, so make sure that you guys pay attention to this and to the video as well. Please answer the question below, and I will talk to you more later.